What happened to the mountain men? The guys that came out here and waded the streams, trapped a beaver, carried on in the industry. What ultimately happened to them? Well, I think the public's perception of that is that lots of them got killed by Indians. Well, let's explore that. In the 1970s, a man named Leroy Hafens wrote a series of books, 10 volumes, and he chronicled to find every mountain man that he could find information on and wrote a snippet about each one of them and ultimately filled these 10 volumes. Well, a man named Richard Furman, he did a foreword in one of those volumes where he had drawn averages from all Hafen's works. He had pulled averages together to give us a picture of who the mountain man actually was. So I'm going to share that with you. Hello, this is William Bailey with Bill's Historical West. Right along with me here, and let's learn who the mountain man really was. Well, the mountain man came to the mountains from parts east, Kentucky, Virginia, Missouri, were the main places in America that drew this wanderlust hard worker. There were some from Scotland. We know a lot of these characters have Scottish surnames. When they came west, by any means and conveyance that they could find, horses, mules, boats, keel boats, they found their way west to come and work in the beaver trade. They come mostly in a time period of 1825 to 1835 is when the bulk of these 292 men came into the Rocky Mountains and worked what we call the rendezvous period, 1825 to 1840. So that's when we're seeing most of the activity with them. They tried their best, they're white men, to carry on a normal existence despite the hard work. 85% of these men were married. Many of them were married numerous times, 2 and 3 wives. Some of the white wives, Indian wives. I didn't find any notes directly about Mexican wives, but I would have to believe that probably some of them were Mexicans. We've got trappers working in and out of Taos. They're in the southern Rockies a lot, and it would make sense that Mexican women were involved with them. Of those marriages, I know statistics are boring, but some of these numbers are pretty incredible. These men, 292 of them, produced 880 children. So many of these would be half-breed children. The men that had white wives, of course, would have white children. I know in the case of the Rubidoux family, they came west during the fur trade and produced, through affiliation with the Sioux tribes, lots of Rubidoux. You come into the West now, and Rubidoux is really a pretty common name, and it originates from those fur traders that came out here. But did they get killed by Indians? Amazingly, only 1 in 10 can be documented as having been killed by Indians. The major cause of death of these men was old age. About 70% of them lived to old age. Really incredible. The average age of death of the mountain man that's chronicled of these 292 is 64 years old, which is pretty long. It's good longevity for that time period. I attribute a lot of that to the healthy atmosphere in the West. High altitudes, arid climate, clean water to drink, a diet primarily of buffalo meat or lean meats, wild meat, kind of what you call a modern carnivore diet. They did consume some plant matter, but really very little vegetable substance. As American Indians, live solely on buffalo meat, not a lot of vegetables, some fruits, depending on the time of year they were available, could harvest them. So I think that played a lot on it. In this arid climate, if you were to be wounded, laceration or puncture wound or something like that, out here, those wounds would heal up because of the healthy environment. The same wound back in the settlements, in amongst all the people, the humid climates, might go septic, gangrene, that kind of thing. Boy, you just don't much read about that in our primary source journals happening out here. The mountain man, Jim Bridger, met with the Whitmans. Whitman was a doctor up around southern Wyoming, I believe, and Dr. Whitman took an arrowhead, a 3-inch arrowhead, out of Jim Bridger's back that he'd been carrying in there for 3 years. That's a wound that likely east of the Mississippi, left untended, would have killed him. But instead, his body healed around it, and he carried on. I'm sure that wasn't very comfortable, but he finally got it taken out by Dr. Whitman. So that kind of gives you a picture of it. I mean, men were killed, horse accidents, gun accidents, river drownings, lightning strikes. I mean, it's very hazardous life out here. But I just am really amazed that so many made it and went on to other occupations. A lot of them left the Rocky Mountains. About 30% of them went on to farming and ranching. That seemed to be the major thing that they did after the beaver had dried up. But some of them became teachers. Some became horse thieves. And some worked in the government, went on to government service, worked as guides, trail guides for the rest of expansion. It was natural for them because they knew the country. They'd already been over it. The wonderful historian Shelby Foote, talking about the Civil War and the country there and how the country came together after the war, and he attributed a lot of that to the fact that those young men, those soldiers, had tromped over the country. They knew it, and therefore had an affinity for America because they had actually trodden over it in the course of the war. These mountain men coming west named the peaks, named the rivers, had discovered this, and were trying to live lives of normal people. I was interested in that there were a number of them that committed suicide or died from alcoholism. And I can kind of put the corner of my mouth up a little bit. Humor is there, and maybe that's associated with those women. I don't know. I could see that. But good on those men for discovering America. And again, this is William Bailey with Bill's Historical West. If you like my content, come and hang out. We're going to be looking at a lot of stuff like this. The goal is to have people understand who the mountain man was, what the mountain man looked like, how he dressed, how he lived, his skill set. And I hope I can bring that to you successfully.